I had a conversation 3 weeks ago that I keep thinking about. A distillery owner, someone who has been making whiskey for over 20 years, showed me what was in his personal cabinet. Not the tasting room cabinet, not the one he sets up for journalists and brand ambassadors and the whiskey press. The one in his house, the one in the room where he actually unwinds at the end of the day. None of it was his own product, not a single bottle. I counted. I asked him about everyone. And what he told me over the next 2 hours, I genuinely debated posting. Because if you run a distillery, and you're watching this, you're not going to love it. This video is that conversation. Welcome back to Cask Index, where we follow the money, ignore the marketing, and find out what people inside this industry actually do when nobody's watching. Today I'm giving you 5 famous whiskeys a distillery owner keeps for himself. 5 bottles he personally drinks at home. 5 bottles he'd never pour in his own tasting room. And for each one, I'm going to tell you exactly what he's selling you instead, and what he's charging you for the privilege. If you've ever spent serious money at a craft distillery tasting room, bought a hand-numbered limited release, or paid a premium for a bottle because the story on the back was compelling, this video is going to change how you think about that transaction. Let's get into it. Quick context before we get to the bottles, because the source matters here. The person I spoke to runs a respected craft distillery. Multiple expressions, awards on the wall, glowing write-ups in the enthusiast press. You'd recognize the name if I said it, and he asked me not to, which I agreed to, because what I got in return was worth considerably more than a name drop. He reached out after watching a previous video on this channel, said he appreciated that we didn't pull punches, asked if I wanted to have an honest conversation about the industry off the record. I said yes immediately. We met at his house, not the distillery. That detail matters. At the distillery, he's in sales mode whether he means to be or not. At his house, with his own cabinet open, the guard comes down. Here's the thing he said before we even started talking about specific bottles. He said, and I'm quoting as closely as I can, "I know exactly what goes into every bottle I sell. That's exactly why I drink something else." Sit with that for a second. The person who makes the whiskey, who controls every variable, who knows the mash bill, the distillation cuts, the barrel selection, the bottling proof, that person goes home and opens something different out. 5 bottles, starting at number 5 and counting down to the one that floored me completely. Number 5, Elijah Craig Small Batch, $30. The first thing he pulled out was a bourbon. I didn't expect that. He makes Scotch. His whole brand identity is built around Scottish heritage, traditional methods, the romance of single malt production. And the first bottle out of his cabinet was an American bourbon. I asked him about it directly. He didn't hesitate. He said bourbon has solved something Scotch is still arguing about: value transparency. The regulations are strict. The mash bill is on record. The age is real. The proof on the label is accurate. The price reflects the liquid, not the mythology built around it. Elijah Craig Small Batch is what he reaches for when he wants a whiskey that delivers without the theater. Rich caramel rolling into toasted oak, a vanilla sweetness that builds steadily through a finish that lingers longer than anything at this price has any right to. 94 proof, complex without being demanding, generous without being cloying, $30 at virtually every liquor store in America. Now here's the contrast that matters. His distillery's flagship expression, the one in the premium bottle with the embossed label and the hand-numbered batch code, retails for $85. I asked him to compare them honestly, not as a brand owner, as a drinker. He picked up the Elijah Craig, poured a small measure, held it for a moment. Then he said, "The Elijah Craig is better. The margin on mine is better." I want you to understand what that means coming from the person who makes the product. He is not saying his whiskey is bad. He's saying that when he sits down at the end of the day and just wants a great drink, he reaches for the $30 bourbon from Kentucky, not the $85 bottle with his name on it. That's the whole video in one exchange, but we're just getting started. Number 4, Monkey Shoulder, $25. He had 2 bottles of this open simultaneously. I noticed. He said he buys it by the case from a wholesaler contact and has done for years. Monkey Shoulder is a blended malt, 3 Speyside distilleries vatted together into something that is, by almost any measure, one of the most purely enjoyable whiskeys at any price. Vanilla, honey, baked apple, a baking spice warmth that finishes clean and inviting. There's a reason every good bartender in the world reaches for it. It's almost impossible to dislike, and it makes everything it touches better. His distillery produces a blended expression, a vatted whiskey using multiple casks. Similar concept to Monkey Shoulder, that retails at $60. I asked him directly how it compares. He said, on a good day they're equal. On an average day, Monkey Shoulder wins. On a bad day, I don't want to think about it. Then He told me something that completely reframed how I think about craft distillery pricing, and I want you to hear this carefully because it explains a lot. He said the premium pricing on small craft expressions has almost nothing to do with the liquid quality. It's about covering the cost structure of small batch production, the equipment, the staffing, the compliance, the tasting room build-out, the distributor margins, the brand building, the PR, the Instagram content, the award submissions, the festival appearances. By the time all of that gets factored in, the liquid budget, the actual cost of the ingredients and the production, is often the smallest line item on the spreadsheet. He said, "We're not charging you for what's in the bottle. We're charging you for everything around it, and most customers never figure that out. Most customers, until now. We're 2 bottles in, and the pattern is already impossible to ignore. Every bottle he keeps for himself costs a fraction of what he charges for his own product, and he knows exactly why." Number 3 is where it gets personal. It's a whiskey he admitted he'd be professionally embarrassed to be seen buying, because it comes from a large corporate producer he's spent years publicly positioning himself against. His entire brand narrative is built on being the authentic alternative to exactly this kind of operation. He buys it anyway, every single month. And number 1 on this list, he picks it up at a gas station 2 miles from his own distillery, while his bottles sit in the tasting room up the road at 4 times the price. Stay with me. And if this is the first Cask Index video you've landed on, this is what we do every single time. Hit subscribe now because the next one is already in production, and it's worse for the industry than this one. Number 3, Ardbeg 10, $25. He actually lowered his voice when he told me this one. We were sitting in his living room with nobody else present, and he lowered his voice out of what I can only describe as professional instinct. Ardbeg is owned by LVMH, one of the largest luxury conglomerates on the planet, the same company that owns Louis Vuitton and Dom Perignon. For a craft distillery owner who has built his reputation on independence, authenticity, and the romance of small-scale production, drinking Ardbeg is a complicated act. But here's what he said, and then I want to give you the full quote because it's worth hearing. "I've been making whiskey for over 20 years. I've made expressions I'm genuinely proud of. I've won awards I didn't expect. And I have never, not once, made anything that touches Ardbeg 10 at that price point. Oh, nobody has. It's the most embarrassing bottle in the industry if you're trying to charge people serious money for whiskey. Ardbeg 10 is an Islay single malt, heavily peated, intensely smoky in the way that Islay whiskeys are famous for. But underneath that smoke, there is a complexity that most whiskeys at 5 times the price simply cannot match. Citrus peel, dark chocolate, espresso, ocean brine. A finish that doesn't just linger. It evolves, changes in the glass, reveals something new every few minutes. Most budget whiskeys give you 1 or 2 flavors and call it done. Ardbeg 10 gives you a dozen, and each sip reveals something the last one didn't. His own peated expression, his distillery's take on the smoky Islay style, retails for $90. I didn't bring it up. He did. He said, "If someone puts my peated expression next to Ardbeg 10 in a blind tasting and my bottle wins, I'll be shocked. I make it anyway because the margins are good and the story sells. But in my house, Ardbeg, every time." Number 2, Johnnie Walker Black Label, $28. This one made me laugh when he pulled it out. Not because it's a bad whiskey, it isn't, but because Johnnie Walker Black Label is the bottle that every whiskey enthusiast claims to have graduated past. The stepping stone, the training wheels, the bottle you drink before you discover real whiskey. Except the person who makes real whiskey for a living keeps it in his cabinet, has done for years, doesn't apologize for it. He said, "Every person in this industry who tells you they've moved on from Johnnie Walker Black is either lying or hasn't tried it recently. It's one of the most technically accomplished whiskeys ever made. The blending that goes into that bottle is extraordinary. We just don't talk about it because it costs $28, and that's inconvenient for everyone trying to charge more." Johnnie Walker Black is a blended Scotch, a combination of around 35 single malt and grain whiskeys aged for a minimum of 12 years. The result is something that most single malts at a twice the price struggle to match for sheer consistency and complexity. Smoke from the Islay component, dried fruit from the Speyside malts, a rich honeyed sweetness that runs through the whole thing, a finish that is long, warm, and endlessly satisfying. It is the most disrespected whiskey in the enthusiast community. Everyone thinks they've moved past it. Nobody actually has. His own 12-year expression, his distillery's flagship aged whiskey, retails for $95. I asked him the obvious question. If Johnnie Walker Black at $28 is technically extraordinary, what exactly is the extra $67 buying? He didn't hesitate. A story about a small distillery in the Scottish countryside, a bottle that looks good on a shelf, the feeling of having bought something exclusive. None of those things are in the liquid. All of them are in the price. Number one, and this is the one that stayed with me longest. He buys this on the way home from work. Not from a specialist retailer, not from a whiskey shop, from a gas station convenience store 2 miles from his distillery. The same distillery where his own bottles sit on a shelf in the tasting room at prices that start at $60 and climb well past $100 for the premium expressions. He pulls in, grabs it off the bottom shelf, pays $19, drives the 2 miles home. Speyburn 10, $19. Speyburn is one of those distilleries that operates in almost complete obscurity by design. No marketing budget worth mentioning, no celebrity endorsements, no limited releases engineered to manufacture scarcity, no tasting room experience designed to make you feel like the price is justified before you've even opened the bottle. Just liquid, just whiskey, just the result of $19 worth of production, maturation, and bottling. And somehow that result is one of the most consistently enjoyable drams available at any price. Green apple, honey, a gentle heather note that is so specifically Scottish, it almost feels like a cliché until you realize you're tasting the real thing. A finish that is clean and warm and inviting without a single harsh edge or off note anywhere in the experience. The kind of whiskey that makes you refill the glass without thinking about it. He told me he first bought it as a joke, grabbed it because the price was so absurd he assumed it would confirm every bias he had about cheap whiskey. He expected to hate it. He expected to pour it down the sink, tell the story at industry events, and feel justified about his own pricing. Instead, it became his house pour. The bottle that's always open, the one he reaches for on a Tuesday night when he just wants a drink and not an experience. I asked him the question I'd been building toward for the entire conversation. If you know this exists, if you know that a $19 bottle from a gas station shelf gives you everything you actually want from whiskey, what exactly are you selling people when you charge them $60, $70, $80, $90 for your own product? He didn't answer immediately. He poured a measure of the Speyburn, held it, took a sip. Then he said, a story, a bottle, an experience, the feeling of having bought something worth buying. The liquid is almost beside the point for most customers, and everyone in this industry knows it. We just don't say it out loud. 5 famous whiskeys, $19 to $30, every one of them sitting in a distillery owner's personal cabinet while he sells you something worse for double, sometimes triple the price. I want to be precise about something before we close. This isn't an indictment of craft distilleries. The person I spoke to is not a fraud. He makes real whiskey. He employs real people. He genuinely cares about his craft. The premium he charges covers real costs that Speyburn and Elijah Craig and Johnnie Walker don't have to worry about at their scale. But caring about your craft and being honest about value are 2 different things. And the most honest thing he said all evening, the thing I keep coming back to, was that the liquid is almost beside the point for most customers, because if the liquid were the point, his cabinet would look different. Now you know what's in it. Go stock yours accordingly. 2 questions for the comments. Which of these 5 are you picking up this week? And has a distillery tasting room experience ever talked you into a bottle you later regretted? Drop both below. I read every single one. And if you want to see the 5 bourbons a spirits distributor would never sell to his own family, that video is dropping very soon. The conversation was even more uncomfortable than this one. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.